What's up, guys? It's John Dominique, the Soul Proponent. Today, my topic is about dropping the drama. What I mean when I say dropping the drama is separating the content of our minds and the activity of our minds, the stories that we tell about ourselves, that we tend to hang on to, that we need for a sense of support, for a sense of identity. These ideas, these images, these stories, these crutches, these objects that we use for foundation have to be dropped eventually on the path. It has to become important enough at some point on the path for us to examine the content of our minds and the reason that we're hanging on to the contents of our minds, the stories we tell about ourselves, the images that we live up to, being a Christian, being a black man or whatever, being a basketball player, being a father. We have all these roles that we acquire since we're, probably about childhood. From the transition from childhood to adulthood, that's when we begin to take on these roles and to hang on to these stories that we tell ourselves. Basically, these stories are ways of rejecting exactly the way we are and going towards an ideal image of who we want to be, of what we want to happen. And when that becomes more important than staying in the present, staying in the now, staying with what is reality, truth, exactly as it is without lifting a finger, and we tend to get swept away. We tend to get carried away. We get caught up in a wild raging river that takes us downstream, and we're distant, far from the core of our being, from the purity of our innocence, the source of our innocence. So dropping the drama is a matter of letting go of these ideas of who we think we are and the way we want the world to be, our hopes, our desires, our dreams. And most people are not willing to take this far enough, because when they realize how attached they are to these ideas, their dramas, their stories, they see how difficult it is, how difficult the path is, and the difficulty, we tend to judge ourselves for it. We tend to say, we turn that into another story, that we're not good enough, we can't do it, it's too difficult, it'll never happen, it'll take forever if it does, I don't want to pay the price. I don't want to have to do the work of taking the path to the soul. And that becomes yet another story that we're going to eventually have to let go of. So these dramas, the need, it's almost a feverish addiction. We always have to have some type of content in our minds, in our heads. And that content obscures the purity of being, pure, open emptiness, spaciousness, without any content, without any activity, without any agitation, without any movement. It's a stillness and a silence that's prevalent in our hearts that we have to make into a priority. If something else is more important, then of course we're going to trip up on the path. And that's not to say that it's going to happen like all of a sudden with a snap of a finger. This is a practice. We have to be willing to do the work of noticing the times when we're getting caught up in our dramas, and why. And we have to look at why we're not able to drop the drama. It seems like there's always some type of mind activity, some type of content in the head that has to be there. It's spinning in its own, with its own energy, even if we were to do nothing, a lot of times we see that the mind is always moving. It's always in agitation. It's always activity. It's always spinning. Even if we let go, it moves on its own, basically. And that's how we know that the mind has control over us versus us having control over it, because we can't stop it. If we had control over it, we'd be able to stop it. But the truth is, it controls us, especially on a subconscious level. So dropping the drama is a very important theme on the path to the soul. Is something that's necessary. We have to see for ourselves. We have to look internally, because the path of the soul is inside us. It's 100% internal. It's not looking outside of ourselves, and it's not looking outside of ourselves or trying to control circumstances outside of ourselves, trying to meet the situations, trying to live up to standards that other people think are important. And yeah, that's good. I'm not saying not to do that. In society, civilization, there comes a time, when we know that, well, basically want to say, it's important, the civilization and the domestication process that we go through as children, like, it's necessary. You can't just drop that. That's not something to just be dropped and then, forgotten about. We see it's important. We see its place. We see its relevance, but it's not the most important thing. If we want truth, if we want the whole truth, not just the truth of our dramas and our lives, not just the truth of being what it means to be human in human civilization, if we want the full entire truth of our divinity, of pure being, of essence, emptiness, and spaciousness, that's the truth of what's there. We have to be able to drop everything that's getting in the way. And the importance of that is to see why is it so important for us to hold on to these stories, these ideas, these images, our longings, our hopes, our desires, our dreams. All of that has to go. Our families, all of our attachments. It's very deep and it's very profound. We keep working like this. We go deeper and deeper and uncover more and more unconscious things that we're hanging on to. And we get closer to the core of our being. We get a little bit more pure. We get a little bit more clarity in our lives. And that's the path of the soul. We need to keep going on like that. It doesn't matter how long it takes, but it's necessary that we do this kind of work consistently on a daily basis, as if it's the most important thing, because it is. If we don't take this seriously and if we don't do the work and go through the process, we just won't have the awakening experience. But the truth is, it's so important. That's the most important thing to our heart. And ego personality always finds something more important. So dropping the drama is a matter of letting go. It's a matter of undoing, reversing the identity of the personality and its tendencies, its instinct to survive. It's a need to hang on. It's hopes. It's going to wipe away the foundations. It's going to make it very uncomfortable to carry on with our lives. So we have to do this in a very safe place where we know we won't be judged. And that doesn't mean we stop living our lives on a practical level. We still have to go shopping. We still have to pay the bills. And that's where the balance comes in. But we do have to take it to an extreme and understand the place of the personality and its systems, the financial systems, economic systems, social systems, justice system, all of those, those are important things. And in a practical level, yes, we have to, in some way, play the game. We have to be attached in some type of degree, but we have to know that that doesn't make up the majority of who we are. It doesn't define us. The dramas, the stories, the inability to drop the drama doesn't define us. A lot of times we tend to think, oh, this is the end of the world. We're worthless because we can't drop all of our dramas. That's not true. That's just where we are right now. That doesn't mean in the future that it can't change. And we have to see the bigger picture, because the ego personality, its tendency to judge, will just pin you in a corner. It'll define you by a little small part without understanding and seeing that the truth of who we are is the innocence, the clarity, the brilliance, the infinite omniscience, the intelligence, the omnipresence. That's the truth of who and what we are. But the ego personality will have you believe that you're just your sinfulness. And that's the majority part of who you are, the most dominant, most prominent, the most defining characteristic of you. But it's not the truth. Our innocence, our the substance of our consciousness, of our awareness, is what we are. That's the truth of what we are. And there's stillness. That's without content, without the agitation, without the activity of the mind going around in circles, stuck in its stories, getting deeper and deeper, further in these rabbit trails, and the thinking process, the reasoning, all of that doesn't define us. It's part of us, and it's an important part of being human. No one's saying that we have to let go of these stories forever, because these stories are important to us, yes. But there's a point where we have to suspend our attachments, suspend our desire to hang on to these stories, and understand why we're hanging on to them. If you look at it very deeply, you'll see just how desperate, just how invested we are in trying to get to the end, the goal, trying to get to the pot, the rainbow, the pot at the end of the rainbow. We have to wait until we hit the lottery, till we get rich, wait until we get married, we have a fairy tale ending. All of these stories we have, they need to be dropped, all of them. And it's going to hurt the longer we try to hang on to them. The more it's going to hurt. We're digging ourselves deeper in a hole, making the situation worse for ourselves. So it's important that we drop the drama on the path of the soul. This is a very important aspect of the path. And we have to be able to build the stamina to be able to stay with the resulting emptiness. There's going to be spaciousness. It's going to be nothingness, a blackness, a blackout. People don't want to face that. And I'm not saying it's going to happen all at once. Again, we have to practice allowing that emptiness, that spaciousness to be there without reaching for something to hang on to, for having something to think about, having a future, having anything. It's a matter of letting go, and then letting go of the need to let go, and to continue to go on like that over and over and over again as a practice. And we need to take that as far as we can, every single day, all the time. That's the path to the soul, the path to the truth, the path to God. That's how it works. And we have to be sincere about this. You can't fake it. You can't say, oh, I'll just do it sometimes and won't do it other times. It doesn't work like that. We can't trick the universe. God is too smart. You can't out-trick God. So dropping the drama is a very important aspect on the path of the soul. We need to understand why. We need to practice and see in our own experience how this works and how it affects us. John Dominique, the Soul Proponent.